It was a crisp October evening in 1997 when the Harper family home, a quaint two-story house on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio, seemed like any other suburban residence. The golden glow of the porch light spilled onto the front lawn, leaves rustling in the gentle wind. Inside, Emma Harper, just 12 years old, was helping her grandmother, Margaret, wash the dishes after dinner. The house smelled faintly of pumpkin spice, a seasonal touch that added comfort to the ordinary evening. No one could have predicted that this would be the last normal night they would ever experience in that home. By the time Emma's mother, Susan, returned from her late shift at the hospital, the house was eerily silent. At first, she thought maybe Emma and Margaret had gone for a walk, or perhaps were hiding, playing some game. But when she stepped inside, the sight that met her eyes made her stomach drop. The dinner dishes were still on the counter, partially cleaned. The living room lights were on, but no one was there. The family cat meowed from the corner, its fur bristling as though sensing something unnatural. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken doors, no overturned furniture, nothing to suggest that anyone had been forced out. Susan called out for Emma and Margaret repeatedly, her voice shaking with rising panic. She checked every room, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, even the attic and basement. The back door was locked, the windows were shut tight. It was as if the two had vanished into thin air. Neighbors were alerted, and soon a small crowd gathered outside, whispering theories and offering help. But no one reported seeing anyone enter or leave the property that evening. Even the local mailman, who passed by daily, insisted he hadn't noticed anything unusual. Police were called immediately, but their initial investigation turned up nothing. No footprints in the yard, no abandoned vehicles nearby, no suspicious persons reported in the area. The case file began with a simple entry: Emma Harper, 12, and Margaret Harper, 64, missing from residence. No signs of forced entry. Yet beneath the simplicity of that line lay a chilling reality. For the first time in decades, the quiet neighborhood had become the setting for a real-life mystery that seemed impossible to solve. Every hour that passed without a lead made the situation more desperate, and the local news picked up the story, broadcasting photographs of Emma's smiling face and Margaret's warm eyes, hoping someone, anyone, might remember seeing them. As night fell, the once comforting home became a place of dread. Street lights flickered, and shadows seemed to linger longer than usual, giving the impression that the house itself was holding its breath. Friends and family waited outside, their fear growing with every passing minute. The police began door-to-door inquiries, but nothing matched the timeline of the disappearance. Rumors started circulating, wild, impossible stories about sightings and mysterious strangers. Yet no explanation fit. The Harper family home, so familiar and ordinary, now stood as the first piece of a puzzle that would remain unsolved for decades, leaving a community gripped by fear, confusion, and unanswered questions. After Emma and Margaret's disappearance, the Harper house didn't return to normal. Even as the neighborhood slowly tried to resume life, strange reports began surfacing. Neighbors swore they heard faint sounds coming from inside the abandoned home late at night, soft footsteps across the wooden floors, quiet whispers, and what some described as muffled crying. Most dismissed it at first, assuming it was just the wind or their imagination, but the frequency of these reports made even the most skeptical residents uneasy. It was as though the house itself refused to let go of its secrets, holding on to something, or someone, hidden within its walls. Objects inside the home began behaving mysteriously. Emma's favorite doll, a small porcelain figure with braided hair, was reportedly seen in the living room one morning, sitting upright on the sofa, only to vanish again by the afternoon. Neighbors noticed the blinds in certain windows were drawn during the day and opened at night, as if someone, or something, was watching. Doors that had been carefully locked were found ajar on multiple occasions, though police found no signs of forced entry. The more these anomalies were reported, the stronger the sense grew that Emma and Margaret's absence was not simply a disappearance, but part of a larger, unsettling puzzle. Even visitors attempting to investigate the house reported disturbing experiences. One curious teenager claimed he had ventured inside through the back porch and felt an immediate chill, as if the temperature had dropped by several degrees. He described hearing soft humming that seemed to echo through the empty hallways, though no one else was inside. Another neighbor said he had peered through the kitchen window at dusk and saw what appeared to be a shadow moving across the room. Each of these accounts, seemingly unconnected, painted a haunting picture. The house was alive with secrets, and those secrets refused to remain hidden quietly. Police files slowly began to reflect these strange occurrences. Reports were noted of unexplained phenomena, a phrase rarely used in official investigations. Detectives debated whether these clues held real meaning or were simply the product of anxious imaginations. Some theorized that whoever had taken Emma and Margaret, or whoever had been hiding them, was sending messages through these subtle movements and objects. Others wondered if the house itself had been used as a tool for concealment, a place designed to mislead, frighten, and confuse anyone who came close. The lack of solid evidence only intensified the mystery, leaving law enforcement frustrated and the community on edge. As weeks turned into months, the Harper home became the focus of rumor, fear, and obsession. Local children were warned not to go near it, adults avoided walking past it after dark, and journalists began publishing eerie stories about the haunted house where a girl and her grandmother had vanished. Even long after the initial disappearance, the house seemed to communicate a silent message. Something had occurred here, something that the world was not yet ready to understand. The strange clues left behind, moving objects, fleeting shadows, inexplicable sounds, hinted at a truth that remained just beyond reach, a truth that would take decades to uncover. As the months turned into years, the trail of Emma and Margaret Harper grew colder and colder. Initial leads and witness reports had long since dried up, leaving detectives frustrated and desperate for any shred of evidence. Tips poured in from strangers across the country, people claiming to have seen the pair in malls, at bus stations, even in other states, but none of these sightings could be verified. Each promising tip ended in dead ends, and soon the case became one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in the town's history. For the Harper family, hope began to fade with each passing year, replaced by an ever-growing dread that they might never see Emma and Margaret again. The local police maintained a file, but it sat largely untouched as newer cases took priority. Detectives occasionally revisited old notes, flipping through photographs of Emma's bright smile and Margaret's gentle eyes, hoping that something they had missed would spark a breakthrough. The FBI even got involved, reviewing the case alongside other cold disappearances. But time had eroded the trail almost entirely. Witnesses who might have remembered key details had moved, memories had blurred, and the once vivid details of that October night were now shadows in the minds of all who had been involved. It was as if the case itself was being swallowed by the past. Meanwhile, the Harper house, once a warm family home, became a symbol of mystery and fear. Locals avoided walking past it after dark, and urban legends began to grow around the property. Children dared each other to peek through its boarded-up windows, claiming they saw movement or heard whispers. Some swore the lights flickered even when there was no electricity, while others reported strange markings on the walls that appeared and disappeared overnight. The house became infamous, an unspoken warning that something terrible had occurred within its walls, yet no one could prove what or why. Family members refused to give up entirely, holding vigils, putting up posters, and speaking to the media in hopes of keeping the case alive. Each anniversary of the disappearance brought renewed attention, but the world was relentless, moving on while the Harpers remained missing. Friends and distant relatives pored over old photographs, trying to spot hidden clues in snapshots of family gatherings and holidays. Yet despite their tireless efforts, every attempt to uncover the truth was met with silence. The case grew heavier with each passing year, the cold trail stretching farther into the unknown, as if Emma and Margaret had been deliberately erased from the map of reality. Decades passed, and the mystery deepened. What had seemed like a simple disappearance had evolved into a haunting question. Could someone really vanish without leaving a trace, right under the noses of everyone around them? Law enforcement files were thick with speculation. Kidnapping, foul play, accidental death. But none fit the chilling pattern of the strange clues and odd occurrences at the Harper home. It was a cold case in every sense, frozen in time, with the answers locked away, waiting for someone brave, or desperate, enough to uncover them. In the spring of 2024, nearly 27 years after Emma and Margaret vanished, the Harper case was still listed among Ohio's most perplexing cold cases. Most of the original detectives had retired, and the town had largely moved on, except for one man. Daniel Reed, a retired police officer who had been a rookie on the original investigation, couldn't shake the case. For decades, he had replayed the events in his mind, haunted by the faces of Emma and Margaret, wondering if something important had been overlooked. One rainy afternoon, as he sifted through old case files in his attic, he noticed a handwritten note tucked into the margin of a 1997 witness statement. It was unsigned, faded, and almost illegible, but the words made him freeze. "Look beneath the house, they are still there." At first, Daniel dismissed it as a prank or the scribbling of a bored detective. But something about the phrasing made his stomach tighten. It wasn't the style of any of the original officers, and the urgency in the message was unmistakable. He remembered the hidden corners and oddities of the Harper house, the shadows, the moving objects, the whispering neighbors' stories. Could someone have known something all along? Could Emma and Margaret really have been hidden in that house for years, right under the authorities' noses? The thought was terrifying, but it also ignited a spark of hope Daniel hadn't felt in decades. He decided to bring the note to the attention of the local police department. At first, the new generation of officers was skeptical. After all, it had been 27 years, and the house had been abandoned for most of that time. But Daniel's reputation and the seriousness in his voice convinced them to take another look. The department agreed to reopen the Harper case, assigning a small team of investigators to comb through every inch of the property once again. Their first step was a meticulous examination of the house's structure, searching for hidden spaces, false walls, or anything that could have gone unnoticed during prior investigations. The Harper house, now overgrown with weeds and showing signs of decay, loomed like a silent sentinel of its past. Windows were boarded, paint peeled from the siding, and the air carried the faint, musty smell of disuse. Yet as the officers stepped carefully through the hallways, they couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching them. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind through broken shutters, seemed amplified in the silence. The strange reports from decades ago, whispers, shadows, toys appearing and disappearing, now took on a new weight. Perhaps the house had never been empty at all. As the investigation progressed, the team discovered small but telling details that had been overlooked in 1997. Dust patterns suggested that some areas had been recently disturbed, despite years of abandonment. In the corner of a closet, a faint outline on the floor hinted that furniture had once been shifted to conceal something. Each discovery heightened the tension, creating a sense of urgency. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, there was a tangible lead, evidence that Emma and Margaret might not have been taken far from the house at all, but instead hidden somewhere within its walls, waiting to be found. As the investigators carefully swept through the Harper house, their flashlights cutting through decades of dust and shadows, they noticed something peculiar in the living room. The thick, threadbare carpet seemed slightly raised near the corner, almost as if it were hiding something beneath. One officer knelt down, running a gloved hand along the edge, and felt a subtle indentation, an outline that didn't match the floorboards. Heartbeats quickened. Could it really be? After 27 years, could the decades-old rumors about hidden spaces actually be true? With cautious precision, the team pried at the corner, revealing a small, rectangular trapdoor, long concealed by layers of carpet and dust. The moment the trapdoor creaked open, a chill swept through the room, as though the house itself were exhaling after holding its secret for so long. A narrow, dark crawlspace stretched out before them, barely wide enough for a person to enter. Flashlights revealed old blankets, faded and worn, carefully arranged on the floor, and scattered belongings that seemed immediately familiar. Emma's small backpack, a collection of pencils, even the porcelain doll that neighbors had reported disappearing and reappearing over the years. It was as if time had stood still inside this hidden room, preserving the past with eerie precision. Among the items, the officers discovered something far more unsettling, a series of handwritten notes, penned by Margaret herself. The notes described a life lived in fear, secrecy, and constant vigilance. Margaret wrote of a mysterious figure who had threatened Emma, detailing the elaborate precautions she had taken to keep her granddaughter safe. She had constructed hidden spaces, moving silently through the house, shifting between rooms and crawl spaces, never allowing herself or Emma to be seen. The writing revealed an intelligence and courage that had gone unnoticed by the outside world, and it painted a haunting picture of the dangers that had loomed just beyond the walls. As the investigators moved deeper into the crawl space, the hidden room revealed even more chilling details. Small compartments concealed food supplies, water containers, and other necessities that suggested the two had survived inside the house for an extended period. The walls bore faint scratch marks, and in some places, crude messages had been etched into the wood, warnings, reminders, perhaps even pleas for protection. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of old wood and dust, carrying with it a strange, almost palpable sense of the tension and fear that had once filled the space. It was a haunting glimpse into a world that had existed entirely out of sight for nearly 3 decades. Every discovery raised more questions than answers. How had no one found them before? How had the house remained untouched by outsiders while the pair survived in plain sight? The hidden room seemed almost alive, holding the echoes of decades-long fear and vigilance. Each artifact, each note, and every corner of the crawl space whispered a story of courage, desperation, and an unbreakable bond between grandmother and granddaughter. The investigators realized they were on the brink of uncovering the truth behind the disappearance, but the full depth of the secret, and the dangers that had once surrounded the Harper family, were only beginning to come into view. As the investigators pieced together the items and notes from the hidden room, a chilling story began to emerge, one that cast the disappearance in a terrifying new light. Margaret had not merely been hiding her granddaughter for a short period. She had been shielding Emma from a dangerous figure within the family's circle. Police records revealed that this individual had a history of violent behavior and obsession, and evidence suggested that he had been monitoring the Harper household for months before the disappearance. Margaret, realizing the threat, had taken extreme measures, constructing secret passages and hidden spaces throughout the home to keep Emma out of harm's way. The notes revealed Margaret's meticulous planning and constant vigilance. She described moving Emma between the crawl spaces, hiding her beneath false floors and behind concealed panels whenever she suspected that someone was near the house. She detailed the subtle signals she used to alert Emma when danger was imminent: small knocks, whispered codes, and hidden signs. It was a life lived entirely in shadows, and the courage required to maintain such a protective ruse was staggering. Margaret's fear for Emma was palpable on every page, a constant reminder that survival had come at the cost of normalcy, freedom, and nearly 3 decades of a hidden existence. Investigators also uncovered evidence that linked the dangerous family acquaintance to the household itself. Financial records, letters, and reports from distant relatives suggested a pattern of manipulation and obsession that had gone undetected by authorities at the time. The notes hinted that Margaret had anticipated his every move, predicting his attempts to approach the house, and countering them with her careful planning. Each step she took was calculated to ensure that Emma remained safe, yet invisible, leaving the outside world entirely unaware of their presence. The reality was more horrifying than any abduction theory. The threat had been inside their lives all along, invisible but deadly. The house itself, with its secret rooms and hidden crawl spaces, had become both a sanctuary and a prison. Margaret had created a complex network of hidden passages that allowed the two to move quietly, evade detection, and survive undisturbed for years. There were makeshift living areas, stored food, and carefully documented instructions for daily routines, all evidence of a life constrained by fear and necessity. For decades, neighbors and law enforcement had walked past the house without realizing the truth it held within its walls. The notes made it clear that Margaret had sacrificed everything, including her own comfort and safety, to protect her granddaughter from a danger that lurked closer than anyone had imagined. As the team continued to explore the hidden spaces, a grim picture began to take shape. The disappearance was not random, nor was it a simple case of abduction. It had been a calculated act of protection, a desperate attempt by a grandmother to shield her granddaughter from a malevolent presence that had infiltrated their lives. Margaret's courage, intelligence, and foresight had kept Emma alive, but at the cost of an existence spent in constant secrecy, trapped within the walls of her own home. The investigators realized that the truth was far more disturbing and more heroic than anyone could have anticipated, a revelation that would forever change the story of Emma and Margaret Harper. The moment the final barriers were removed from the hidden crawl spaces, the investigators stepped cautiously inside, flashlights cutting through the thick darkness. What they found was both shocking and heart-wrenching. Emma Harper, now in her early 40s, had been living within the hidden areas of her own home for years, carrying the trauma and memories of a childhood spent in constant fear. She looked fragile yet alert, her eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and relief as she emerged into the light. The years of hiding had left their mark on her. Her small stature and careful movements hinted at a life spent moving silently, avoiding notice, and enduring the unimaginable. The discovery of Emma alive stunned the investigators, but the story of survival extended far beyond her. Margaret, her grandmother, had long since passed away, leaving behind the carefully documented notes that detailed every precaution, every secret passage, and every step she had taken to protect Emma. Police read the notes with a mix of awe and horror, realizing that Margaret had spent decades outsmarting a dangerous individual who had targeted the family. The level of planning, intelligence, and sheer bravery required to sustain such a life was extraordinary, and yet the emotional toll it had taken on both women was immediately visible in the fragile atmosphere of the hidden rooms. As news of the discovery spread, the town was gripped by a mixture of relief and disbelief. Friends, neighbors, and family members flocked to the scene, many unable to comprehend that Emma had survived in hiding for decades. Journalists arrived to cover the story, eager to understand how a disappearance that had haunted the community for 27 years could end in such a shocking revelation. For the first time, the pieces of the decades-old mystery began to fit together. The strange sounds, the moving objects, the shadows reported by neighbors, all were explained by a life spent in carefully concealed spaces. The Harper house, long thought empty, had held a hidden world of survival and courage. Investigators also revealed the identity of the individual who had threatened Emma so many years ago, exposing a chilling pattern of obsession and manipulation that had terrorized the family. Through a combination of old evidence, newly uncovered documents, and corroborating witness accounts, law enforcement was finally able to establish how close the danger had been. It was a revelation that both horrified and amazed the community. The threat had been real, persistent, and terrifyingly close, yet Margaret's ingenuity had kept Emma safe. The story was no longer just about a disappearance. It had become a tale of survival, resilience, and the extraordinary lengths one woman went to protect the child she loved. Emma's return to the world outside the Harper home was cautious but hopeful. For decades she had lived in silence, moving between hidden passages and never allowing herself to be seen. And now she faced the challenge of reconnecting with a world that had continued without her. Her story, preserved in Margaret's notes and the evidence recovered from the hidden rooms, became both a warning and an inspiration, a reminder of the dangers that can exist close to home, and the courage it takes to survive them. Every item recovered, the toys, the handwritten messages, the hidden furnishings, served as a tangible testament to a life lived in secrecy, a decades-long battle that was finally coming to light for the first time. As the story of Emma and Margaret Harper finally came to light, it became clear that some mysteries are not solved by luck, but by courage, determination, and love. A grandmother's bravery had hidden a terrifying truth in plain sight for nearly 3 decades, and a young girl's survival became a testament to the human spirit's strength. The Harper house, once a silent witness to fear and uncertainty, now stands as a monument to resilience and the lengths someone will go to protect those they love. Yet even with Emma safe and the truth revealed, questions linger. How many secrets remain hidden behind closed doors in ordinary homes? How many stories of courage, fear, and survival go untold, trapped in silence for years? The Harper case reminds us that the past is never truly gone. It waits, sometimes quietly, sometimes in shadows, until someone dares to uncover it. And so, as the sun sets over the quiet Ohio town, the Harper home keeps its secrets no longer, but the echoes of its decades-long mystery will remain in the minds of everyone who hears the story. What started as a disappearance became a tale of protection, love, and survival against the unimaginable, and a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying dangers are closer than we ever imagine. The story of Emma and Margaret Harper proves that even in the darkest corners, hope can survive, and truth, no matter how deeply buried, can eventually see the light.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.